Here's Brody Brazil.
So as I'm scrolling social media yesterday, I keep coming across this same 30-second clip of Adam Silver. And without listening to it, I can clearly see there's a lot of negative reaction to not only what he said, but how he said it. So I finally decide to give it a listen. And personally, I couldn't really believe how he laid out this topic. Now, the question was, what's the league's response to how difficult it's starting to become for NBA fans to subscribe to all of these services so that they can follow not only their teams, but the NBA as a whole? Now, here's the catch. If you just listen to this soundbite, it plays one way. But if you listen to the entire question and response, it plays out totally different. Here's the clip that everybody saw on social media yesterday.
There's a huge amount of our content that people can essentially consume for free. I mean, this is very much a highlights-based sport, so, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, any service, the New York Times for that matter, to the extent that your content is not behind a paid firewall. There's an enormous amount of content out there. YouTube, by another example, that is advertising-based that consumers can consume.
So is he basically saying if you can't afford one of these streaming packages, just piece it all together on social media? Get this clip here, get that highlight there. You don't even care about the entire games altogether, do you? You only want to see highlights. It's kind of hard to believe in that short window of 20 or 30 seconds or whatever, the context he put it in doesn't seem right. And that's because the context isn't right. More on that in just a second. I understand why that clip right there strikes a nerve, because the NBA's brand new national TV deals, they mostly reside on multiple paid streaming platforms. Out is TNT, in is Amazon Prime. NBC doubles down on some of its offerings, but mostly on the Peacock side. ESPN's got their brand new app. Of course, they're going to put things still on old-fashioned linear television, but they're also pushing their brand new platform. So streaming platforms are the way of the future. There's no question about that. But NBA fans are suddenly like, whoa, a lot of the absolutely free games are going away. They're going to places that are on paywalls and kind of walled gardens, things like that. There's also the regional team situations where a lot of networks locally and regionally still carry all of their teams' games, most of their teams' games, but it's a paid subscription service. It's something you have to subscribe to either via an app or satellite service or a cable provider. So how do you watch the NBA as much as you want to if you don't have at least one or multiple of these subscriptions? And again, it's the amount of different services and the total subscriptions required if you really want to catch a lot of basketball. For the commissioner to call it a highlights league, I do feel like that minimizes the value of, actually watching full games and enjoying the strategy. And I doubt there's a lot of defensive highlights usually on social media. Sometimes a nice block or a steal here and there, but how about some nice zone defense? You're not going to see that on a social media clip. All you're going to see is the fast break, the dunk finish, or the incredible three-pointer, or some kind of trick shot. That's the highlight league aspect of it, and I get it. He sees what a lot of other people see, moments that go viral. I totally understand that, but aren't we here to watch basketball games and appreciate a basketball game 48 minutes start to finish? It really does kind of minimize the value of the game, of the league, of the sport, of the product to just call it a highlights league. Anyway, but again, that's one sentence here in the bigger context of what he said. This is not entirely what he said. I also think by suggesting that there's all this free content out there, which is true, I don't know that the NBA entirely loves that to some degree. Like, they'll take the promotion, they'll take the marketing, but they know that there might be a lot of people out there who only get their NBA highlights and information and entertainment via free sources. They're not paying a dime. And so that's good. Like, they're reachable. You want your sport to be accessible, but it's a weird thing for the NBA to be suggesting that, like, hey, go right around our providers and go to the free stuff on social platforms. That's a very scrappy alternative. Anyway, I just want to acknowledge all these things because this is the main reaction that a lot of people had to what the clip that they saw said. But that brings me to the original question and the full answer. And I didn't even get who asked this question. But it's a long one. It's a detailed one. It's a good one. And here it is. Question. It's become very expensive to watch the NBA as a fan, not just going to games, but also in order to, there's different streaming services you have to subscribe to. Some of the RSNs, regional sports networks, are expensive. Those are the local and regional television deals. I know that there are other points of entry for fans to interact with the NBA. There's social media and a lot of younger fans. That is how they're experiencing the sport. But I wonder how much you think about that and how that will shape the next generation of fans. Really good question there. Adam Silver's response. This is a question posed to the commissioner of the NBA. He says, I think about it a lot. I will say I saw the story your publication ran. Don't know which one that is. You took all the different streaming services and added them up and what those costs would be. And I can't imagine that's a low dollar amount. If you subscribe to all the NBA partner platforms, it's probably pretty expensive per month and per year. I look at it a little bit differently because most people can only consume so many games. By way of one example, in these new media deals, we're going from essentially 15 exposures on broadcast television to 75. So to the extent someone wants to put little rabbit ears on their television, you can still get 75 marquee games, in essence, for free in the marketplace. Meaning over-the-air television, free television. Apparently that number is what the NBA is advertising. 75 marquee games this year, absolutely free. I'd say in addition to that, and this is an ongoing issue for the league, there's a huge amount of our content that people essentially consume for free. Now, we're about to get into the part you've already heard him say, but this is an ongoing issue for the league. He's acknowledging absolutely what the question is, absolutely what the concern of fans are, that they're not getting enough access for free, or they're having to pay too much in too many different places. A huge ongoing issue for the league, a huge amount of our content that people essentially consume for free. He said, quote, this is very much a highlights-based sport, so Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, any service, the New York Times for that matter, to the extent that your content is not behind a paid firewall, there's an enormous amount of content out there. YouTube, another example, that is advertising-based that consumers can consume. You've already heard this part. I think this is a new world now of streaming media. I think we're paying a lot of attention to that. It was one of the discussions we had with our media partners. Like, this is the part you didn't hear. Not just the cost of the games, and I think most people are conditioned to paying a certain amount for high-value content, but also the discovery of those games, right? For younger fans, for the audience that doesn't have a job yet because they're 14 years old and they still want to watch the NBA. They're interested, but they don't necessarily have the access to it for free. Again, I'm a fan of many different sports. I think we've all had that experience where you're going to Google to find the game you want to watch because the world has changed. Like, it's not easy to find what channel the games are on anymore. It's not just automatically in the place you thought it would be. But ultimately, I'll talk about it in terms of reach and how you reach your consumers. It's interesting because of the disruption in the regional sports network business. I never would have predicted this was coming 10 years ago, but a lot of our local games are moving back to broadcast television. In fact, we have more games on broadcast television locally than we've had any time in recent history. We're continuing to look at it, but the ultimate answer is we think a lot about it. We know where we have mass appeal. On a global basis, we're literally reaching billions of people. We don't want to disenfranchise people by working with partners that are creating price points that make it inaccessible to them. I mean, you heard the clip and you saw how that was posed to the public, and you saw that one little bit of how he says, well, if you want to be a fan, there's free ways and you get your little bits and pieces here and there, but we'll never let you watch a game. He's literally saying they've increased the amount of free television games and they're aware of this and they're concerned about it and it's very important to them. Doesn't this paint a totally different picture? As I get to my takeaways here, yeah, you know what? For the NBA, the landscape of sports television, it's obviously a brand new frontier, and it's hard for them right now with so many things changing and things going from old media to new media, and they're having to strike a brand new 12, 13, 14-year deal with their television partners. It's hard to predict exactly where things are going, how they can do this in a way that it's still going to be all their content, all their games accessible, easily accessible to fans. Not only can they discover it, but they can consume it at a reasonable price on a regular basis. It will take some exploring. Honestly, there are going to be some missteps, some mistakes along the way. I think we've seen that with Major League Baseball. They've tried some new time slots. They've worked with some partners where you're like, what even is the Roku channel? How do I get that game on the Roku channel? I want to watch my team, and usually they're on one channel, like 6 nights out of the week. And then on the 7th day, I can't even find them. I don't know how to even get this channel. That's not a good thing, but again, this is all part of the trial and error as we embark into really a new landscape. You really, though, no matter what, no matter where this goes, no matter what technologies exist, no matter what platforms exist, the number one golden rule here is you have to make sure that you don't price out your current and future fans of the sport. Not only make it too difficult, but also set that price point too high where they're like, you know what? It's just not worth it anymore. You have to create it at that price point where they're still interested. It seems like a deal. It seems like a fair deal. It not only seems like a fair deal, it seems like something they can't wait to take advantage of. And they respect the fact that there is some cost to it, but they're going to get a lot for it. They're going to get everything for it. No blackouts, all the games, one place. Simple as that. You want to be easy and predictable to find. Maybe that's the second rule here. Number 1 is the price point. Number 2, easy and predictable to find. And you know what? I think the main message out of all this, what people saw on social media yesterday from Adam Silver, kind of putting it out there like, well, you can find us for free. You can get your little bits and pieces and highlights and piece it all together and figure out what happened at a game. Don't believe everything you see from just one clip. In that case, it was lifted. It was the juicy part. It's a little bit out of context, and then it just flew away. And then everybody kind of ran with that and saying, does he really feel that way about us, the audience? Like, you'll figure it out on social media. We're going to put games in harder to reach places and you can just figure it out on social. No, that's not at all what he said. So the highlights-based sport comment, that was part of the equation, but the bigger picture is, yes, they're concerned. Yes, they're aware of this. And yes, it's definitely something that they are cautious about moving forward. I've got full respect for Adam Silver. I know a lot of times commissioners take the credit or they take the heat for how a league is going. I know he doesn't get everything right. There's certainly no question about that. But I think there's a lot of effort and thought and care and compassion put into the things that he and the NBA do. And I think this is just an example of that. So I wanted to set the record straight. Maybe you saw the clip. And if not, now you heard it, and now you know the real story. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I really appreciate that so I can see you back here next time.